Alright, so in this video I am inking page 22 of my Realm Ethereal comic book, the 4th issue. Um, yeah, basically, why I focus on my art, specifically my comic book, and essentially my own IP versus fan art. As an independent artist, and I think that's mostly coming from the vantage point of being an independent comic book artist. Really, I've often kind of asked myself, or people here and there, friends of mine, like, why do I choose to focus on creating my own independent comic art and characters instead of delving into more fan art commissions or even indulging in drawing fan art for myself. I've done a couple of fan art commissions over the years, not a whole lot, but a few. But to answer the question, the answer to this question is multifaceted and deeply personal. So firstly, let's kind of talk about burnout. Over time, the passion that initially drew me to popular mainstream characters began to wane. Honestly, as a guy who just turned 50 this year and has been interested in comic books since I was probably 10 or 12 years old. While those iconic heroes and villains of those Marvel and DC comics have played a significant role in my shaping my love for comic art, repeatedly drawing these characters started to feel monotonous. These legendary characters will always have a special place in my heart, but I found myself yearning for new challenges and fresh narratives. Now, this is nothing new for me. I've always been doing my own comic book characters and stories, even when I was trying to break in, as they say. The excitement that comes with creating something entirely original basically became a balm for this artistic fatigue. So there's something wholly exhilarating about crafting my own stories. Unlike fan art, which involves reinterpreting pre-established characters and worlds, creating my own stuff, my own comic book series, allows me to explore uncharted territories. I could let my imagination run wild, with no constraints, but those of my own making, right? This freedom to weave together complex plots and develop nuanced characters is profoundly satisfying for me. And by no means am I a great writer or even a great artist, by any stretch. Still, crafting original stories has become a medium for myself, which I can express, my ideas, thoughts, and perspectives in a way that fan art simply can't match. Another significant reason for my focus on original creations is the control it affords. I've talked about this before in other videos, but developing my own characters and storylines, I hold the reins. There's no need to adhere to the stipulations of fan fiction or any expectations of a well-established fan base. The autonomy is in my creative process is invigorating. I mean, I own my artistic visions, right? My artistic creations entirely, and the ownership brings with it a sense of accomplishment in a way. It also allows me to maintain the integrity of my work, and I think it ensures that my artistic vision remains undiluted by external influences. Obviously, that's not entirely 100% possible. I think every artist is initially influenced by external influences, so that goes without saying. But creating comic book art, it's pretty intensive. It's an intensive endeavor that can consume countless hours. And I've got when I was working digitally, I have the Procreate files that show how many hours and how many brush strokes I've spent on a page. But you know what? Given the investment in time and effort required, I prefer to channel this energy into projects over which I have ownership. That's a biggie. That's a big one. When I'm working late into the night, as a lot of us, self-published creatives tend to, fine-tuning a page or perfecting a piece of dialogue, when I put on my writing hat, is really gratifying to know that at the end, the end result is something uniquely mine. This personal investment makes those long hours worthwhile, and turning what some might see as a toil actually into a labor of love. So, the thing with pursuing, my own art, creating my own comic book There's obviously challenges, but there's also perseverance involved. So I think it's important to acknowledge that focusing on my own IP comes with its own challenges. So like developing original content requires, I think for me, significant time, effort, and resources. Marketing and self-promotion can also be daunting, especially for those new to the industry. And while I've only ever created my work for myself, and as far as making comic books, by and large, I would say I've done that. Those challenges are very real, but those challenges are also what excite me to push into this arena of self-publishing my own comic book. So, the perseverance in building my own brand can also lead to long-term rewards that far outweigh the initial hurdles, I think. And I think it's important to clarify that my shift away from fan art doesn't stem from any kind of disdain for the genre. And, on the contrary, the Marvel and DC heroes were my first love, and they still hold a special place in my creative journey. Those classic comics were the birthplaces of my artistic inspiration. I'm going to have to do a follow-up video, in fact I plan to, of my favorite artists that I grew up reading and trying to emulate. But that'll be a video for another time. But anyway, a lot of those comic books, those were the stories that taught me about heroism, adventure, and the intricacies of narrative art. But as I've matured, so too has my aspiration, I think. Today I find a lot more fulfillment in creating stories that I can publish and sell independently. It's a different kind of excitement knowing that the worlds I build and the characters that I develop are solely mine, ready to be shared with an audience on my own terms. So the decision to focus on my own original work rather than fan art was, I think, a natural evolution. It stems from a desire for creative freedom, personal ownership, and a satisfaction of creating stories that are entirely my own. So while I still appreciate and respect mainstream characters that once inspired me, my heart now lies in the limitless possibilities of original creation. So over the last few years, I've no longer feel the pressure to create comic book sample pages for submission to any big mainstream publishers. And it has been another substantial shift in my artistic journey. So for years, and I did a video series on this not too long ago. Like many aspiring comic artists, I meticulously crafted sample pages in hopes of catching the eye of a Marvel or a DC. But as time passed, so did my priorities. I'm now driven by the confidence to craft my own worlds, kind of sprinkling them with my own unique characters and narratives straight out of, my own imagination. This self-assuredness fuels my creativity and propels me forward, so pretty much unshackled by the need to conform to any kind of mainstream expectations, really. That's what that kind of comes down to. So, it's not that I've entirely closed the door on collaboration. Collaboration with other creatives can be incredibly enriching and offer new perspectives, I think, that can enhance my work. The key factor for me now, though, is the allure of the project itself. I'm open to collaborative efforts, but they really have to resonate with me deeply. The premise must be intriguing enough to ignite that creative spark within me and make me want to commit my time and energy wholeheartedly. The other thing about working on my own characters, obviously, is the building of a brand. So when I focus on my own IP, I think it helps in building a strong personal brand. I think artists are known for specific characters or stories, or when they're known for those particular characters or specific stories, that I think creates a lasting impression in the minds of fans and industry professionals. Over time, this can lead to a loyal fan base, and that can support an artist's work across various projects and platforms. So I think for me, creating my own IP will provide numerous opportunities for cross-promotion, if that ever happens, whether it's through social media, conventions, or collaborations with other artists. So, I create with that in mind as well. Again, but it's not the driving force behind what I do. But it's there, So while I've never had the opportunity to do professional work with major publishers, like a Marvel or DC, I accept this reality pretty much with open arms. And frankly, I'm going to be the first to admit that I may never have been good enough for Marvel or DC. Yeah, that's perfectly okay with me. My artistic journey led me down a different path, one that may not have intertwined with those industry giants, but has been just as fulfilling in its own right. With age and experience, I've come to understand that my true satisfaction lies in blazing my own trail. Working on original content can be incredibly fulfilling. I think I'm testament to that. I've been involved with my own comic book and this property, the Realm Ethereal, for at least the last 4 years, maybe 5 years, I think. But I think, this allows artists to fully express their vision, certainly in my case, and ideas, rather than strictly adhering to another, company or someone else's narrative or style guidelines. So this type of creative satisfaction, I think, leads to greater motivation and productivity. Additionally, the process of developing a unique IP can help sharpen various skills, from storytelling, character development, and marketing and business acumen. I know from my own perspective that when I do my own comics, I trained myself on how to build my own website on WordPress, and then how to operate and use WooCommerce to make take payments on my website, and then working with vendors like Printful to see how that part of the business aspect would work. Tying in my own drawstring bags with my art on it, or mouse pads with my art on it, or even the print-on-demand printers out there, setting up my comics. So working on your own property, I think, trains you to do that, because if you're working with some IP, they're going to handle all that. So and that stuff I've always been really into anyhow. I've had a background in printing for a number of years, and so that always fascinated me anyway. So it was always easy to do these kind of things, or at least I was super motivated to do that anyway. So I think along those lines, adaptability has become a cornerstone of my philosophy. So to borrow an analogy, rather than stressing about the direction the wind's blowing in, I've learned to adjust my sails and remain happy making my art doing so. And this flexibility enables me to navigate the unpredictable seas of the creative world. It's my artistic life, and I just want to make sure that I'm able to kind of set my own rules and not let any kind of gatekeepers dictate my journey. So yeah, I do relish the freedom to make my own way, kind of carving out unique spaces where my art and stories can flourish without any kind of imposed limitations. So I think, by no means am I a comic book industry expert, but I think, the industry obviously is continually evolving, and with digital platforms and self-publishing becoming increasingly popular, these trends they offer more avenues for independent artists to showcase and monetize their work. So I think establishing, my unique IP can help me take advantage of these opportunities as I mentioned. So allowing me to reach a global audience without the need for traditional publishing deals. So that's a huge motivation for me to keep pushing forward. And then as the years have passed and my journey as a comic book artist has evolved, I've devoted a substantial amount of time to studying art, particularly figure drawing. So this intense focus on honing my craft has transformed the way I approach my work. Mastering the subtleties of human anatomy, movement, and expression requires not just skill, but like a deeper understanding of the nuances that bring a figure to life, particularly on the comic book page. So as a result, I found myself becoming more inward focused in that area, honing my abilities as an artist with greater concentration and dedication. So this inward focus has inevitably resulted in more time-consuming art projects. Each piece I produce is the culmination of countless hours spent refining my technique and ensuring that every detail resonates with authenticity and emotion. So by taking this meticulous approach, I strive to elevate the quality and impact of my art, even if it means that my projects take longer to complete. I know no one wants to hear that, because especially if I'm trying to put work out. But there is, satisfaction I derive from producing work that truly reflects my artistic vision. But however, it's important to note that there is a fine balance to maintain when honing my craft while also seeking to produce comic books in a reasonable time frame. So this constant struggle between doing enough and doing too much with the art can sometimes hinder the output of the comic book story itself. I had made a video earlier about why so precious, and that really strikes a chord here. Being precious means being so precious with the artwork that the artwork never gets done, or it's way overly rendered or whatnot. But that's a challenge that I continuously am working on. Trying to get faster and more efficient as an artist without sacrificing the quality of the work. So I think finding that equilibrium is crucial, and it allows me to tell the stories I am excited to tell while keeping up with the demands of the medium. So the decision to provide myself the space and time to fully develop my art is a conscious one. And I don't rush through creations, but I rather allow them to mature, if that makes sense, to breathe and to evolve naturally. I mean, that's part of my process, I think. But also, I think being able to let go, like draw a piece, look at it, and realize what works and what doesn't, and if it doesn't, not try to fix it unless it's like horribly wrong or horribly obvious that there's something inaccurate or doesn't work. But for the most part, I learn from it, and I just move on and go on to the next piece. And I think working with ink on papers especially makes that really accessible, or makes it more to the point where you need to really practice that. But then it just makes me a lot more sharper, I think, when I am ready to draw that next piece, because I have to really think about what I'm putting down on the paper, on the page. So for the most part, in general, going that path has bestowed upon me that the autonomy and satisfaction and creative fulfillment that makes those late night sketch or drawings and storyline draft deeply worthwhile. I mean, the characters and worlds I imagine are extensions of who I am, what I've consumed, and essentially like who I am as a person. And I think sharing them with others on my terms is going to be the greatest reward of all. So while fan art and submissions to mainstream publishers could provide visibility and experience, I think the benefits of developing my own IP are far more substantial. From the creative control and the financial advantages to the personal branding and the professional satisfaction. For me, focusing on original content can lead to more rewarding and sustainable career in the comic book industry. So I think embracing your own vision and ideas not only sets you apart, but also opens the door to countless possibilities and growth. So ultimately, the drive for creating independent comic book artwork stems from the profound, at least for me, the satisfaction of bringing original characters and the worlds they live in to life. So there's that joy in seeing others drawn to that and enjoying these creations. So owning my own intellectual property and reaping all the benefits that come with it is a tremendous reward for my hours spent working on my craft. So again, it's my artistic life, and I want to make sure that I'm able to dictate my journey at this point. So yeah, I really do relish that freedom to create my own way, carving out unique spaces where my art and stories can flourish with no boundaries, So anyway, that's what this video is about. Thanks for watching, and if you like what you saw here, comments are cool. Click to see more, subscribe, and all that cool stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching.